In today's episode of the podcast, we are drawing to a conclusion these episodes that are focused on bouncing back. That's not to say we're never going to talk about it ever again. I am the queen of bounce back. But the focus this week was very specifically targeted on those times when things don't go according to plan. And so today, we're going to be talking about this idea of spiraling upward. Now, if you followed along with any of the live videos I did last week on Facebook, you will have heard me talk about this a little bit already. I make no apology for that, however, because it's actually a really valuable skill and one that I would really encourage you to practice more of so that it becomes your natural default go-to position. Because this will surprise some of you, but I didn't always used to be as upbeat and perky and silver lining spotting as I am now. I used to be, and to be honest, there's still days when I'm not. I can be quite grumpy sometimes and have a little chunter to myself, like random silly little things. If somebody parks outside the street that we live on, this is a really random example. The street where we live on is permit parking, and outside my house, there is a space, and in my head, it is my space, and nobody else should park there apart from me, or maybe my husband at a push. But of course, it's not my space. It's available to anybody who has a parking permit in the right zone. And so occasionally, somebody else parks there, and I get a bit grumpy about it. Ooh, what's that car doing parking there? Particularly if it's a car that I don't know. So I've lived in this street for 17 years now. So you do tend to get to know other people's cars. But if it's a car I'm not familiar with, I'm like, oh, whose car is that? Oh, that's even worse then, because I start worrying, well, how long will it be there? Do they think they can always park there? So I can be grumpy sometimes. However, I'm not as, my default positivity level generally is quite high because of all the stuff that I teach you to do. Like over the years, I put into practice the stuff that I talk about. I really do. I like to think I really do walk my talk because I know it makes a difference. So if you're somebody who maybe you listen along to some of these and you're having not a really great week, and there is the temptation to hear someone like me who's quite sort of perky and upbeat suggest things, and you go, oh yeah, it's okay for you, Elle. You're the silver lining spotter. It's easy for you. Your default positivity level is really high. I'm naturally grumpy. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm naturally grumpy. I find it really hard to be positive. There is no hope. Now, what I want to remind you of today is two things. And I know, okay, the wisdom of the internet world is that you shouldn't have two things. You should only have one thing. But sue me, because the one thing relates to the other thing. So it's all connected in my head. The first thing, and it's really important, I want to remind you that your brain is not fixed. Now, Carol, I always get her surname wrong. Carol Beck, I can't remember, doesn't matter. And I should have looked it up beforehand, but I didn't, because I didn't quite know exactly what direction we'd be going with this podcast episode. I didn't know I was going to mention it. I want to say Carol Dweck. But anyway, she's the lady who did all the work on fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And if you haven't read her book, do. It's brilliant. I highly recommend it once I get her name right. And I will put a link to it in the show notes so you can find it really easily. But her reminder is that these two different mindsets is the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. But your brain is plastic. There's neuroplasticity, which I find really hard to say. It's not like literally plastic, but it is fluid. And just because you might be, even if you think you're someone that grew up with a fixed mindset and this is the way it's always been, you're not stuck like that forever. Our brains, the science over the last 10 years has told us and has shown scientists that actually you can lay down new neural pathways and you can practice these things and you can change your brain. And so it doesn't matter to me whether you think you're somebody that was born negative or not. Doesn't matter. You're not stuck there. You can choose to start trying things and laying down new pathways. Now, how that ties in with this idea of spiraling upward, and this is the second point, is if you have had a challenging week, if things have happened that are a bit tricky, I want to remind you and encourage you to start looking for the growth aspects of this. What can you learn from it? Now, it's nigh on impossible to find the lessons learned or the exercises or the growth stuff when you're slap bang in the middle of it. So if right now it's really, really raw still, maybe save this just for a little while. But once you've come through it and you're going to start moving forward, I want you to start thinking, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What opportunities for growth are there? Because that way then you can start to spiral upward. And I call it spiraling upwards because too often we go, oh, but this and that, and we spiral downward and we let our brains loose and run rampant. Instead, I want you to practice spiraling upward. And I want to encourage you to use, if you've never come across it before or never tried it before, try my 3-word hack, but at least. So this thing has happened. It's not great, but at least. And then allow your brain to fill in the blanks and see what comes up. And some of the stuff that comes up will be stupid. Some of the stuff that comes up will feel like, oh, yeah, okay, like you're clutching at straws. But the more you practice, but at least, that's hard to say. The more you practice using that 3-word hack, you start looking for those silver linings in these different situations. You are laying down new neural pathways and you are showing your brain that it is important to you to see those silver linings. And the more you start consciously looking for them, the easier it is to see them. Your brain will literally filter them in more. So it works in many different ways. But if it's not something you've tried before, I should warn you, it will feel a bit tricky to start with. So stick with it, try it. Now, I know I've said before, one size does not fit all. However, this works. What it really is about is if it doesn't work for you initially, it's then about tweaking and adjusting and seeing, okay, how can we make it work for you? Okay, so if you try it and you find it difficult, I don't want you to go, well, forget it. That's it. Elle said that not everything works. Elle said that one size doesn't fit all. Therefore, this is something that doesn't work for me. That's not what I'm saying. If you try this and in this format, you find it doesn't work, and don't just try it once. Come on, give it a good go. But if you find that, okay, in the way that I'm presenting it to you, it doesn't work, then come back to me. Book a call, faithandbusinessplayground.com/talk. Tell me your challenges and let's work together to find a way where you can try it in a way that it does work for you. Because your brain is wonderful and amazing, and we're all unique, special snowflakes, etc. But the way that our brains are knit together, there's a lot of science there. And science tells us that your brain can lay down new pathways. And so if the way that I'm advocating today doesn't work for you, or you've tried it and you're not quite sure, and you want some help applying it, let's talk about it and we can work together to find a way that it will work for you. Because it can work. It's just about tweaking the method, okay? But your little piece of homework, your next action is to try this for yourself. The next time, and maybe it's right now today, the next time where you're feeling yourself, this thing didn't go quite right, but at least, and then see what comes up, okay? Excellent. I shall be back tomorrow with a little special something. I'm not going to tell you, otherwise that would spoil the surprise. But in the meantime, if you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. Consider leaving a review. And like I say, if you want some help applying this to your unique situation, faithandbusinessplayground.com/talk.